Now it's time to deep dive into the requests. So here, as sending requests or requests are pretty much important, and as part of API, so we would explore in detail about, we will discuss in detail about the requests. We will begin with building requests. We can send requests in Postman to connect to APIs you are working with. Your requests can retrieve, add, delete, and update data. Whether you're building or testing your own API or integrating with a third party API, you can send your requests in Postman. So your request can send parameters, authorization details, and any body data you require. For example, if you are building a client application such as a mobile or web app for a store, you might send one request to retrieve the list of available products, another request to create a new order including the selected product details, and a different request to log a customer into their account. So when you send a request, Postman display the response as I'll show you. So this is the first one. Okay. When we send a request, Postman displays a response received from the API server in a way. You see that this is how it looks. So if it is necessary, we can actually visualize it also if you want to, and if you want to troubleshoot it, we can do it. Okay. So here, what all we are gonna do in building requests section of Postman is we'll create some requests, and then we will add a request details. It's not that a simple request will give and we'll send that a request. In addition to that, we will add we'll set up the request URL, and we'll select the request method, and we will send parameters also. We'll send parameters. It's not the direct endpoint. In addition to the endpoint, we will send parameters. Then we'll send body data also, and authenticating the requests and configuring request headers and auto-generated headers also we can use that. So these things specifically we'll see. In addition to that, we will also look into the choosing the custom settings and troubleshooting our requests in case of any issue comes. In case of we are unable to fetch the data or post the data, then we have to troubleshoot. So anyway, we'll begin with creating requests. uh, your requests can include multiple details determining the postman data postman. So we'll send it to the API you are working with. Enter a URL and choose a method. Obviously, enter a URL and choose a method, and optionally specify a variety of other details such as params, authorization, headers, body, pre-request script, tests, and settings. These are we call it as details of the postman call or URL or postman endpoint. Okay, or request. These are all called the details of the postman request. So now in this we can create a new request. Let's create a new request from a postman home screen by using new button. Let me zoom it. Yeah, using this new soft button, we will create a new request. I'll click on this, and now, yeah, now I'll click on HTTP request. This is one way, or we can directly select on a plus symbol here, and we can create that one. Okay, so for now I'll go with this method, new and HTTP request. Yeah, it's been created. Now let me zoom out, and this is the request URL. This is where we have to paste it. Okay, now we haven't given the name, so we have to give a name to this, and then we have to select in a specific collection. So the name I'm gonna give for this, I'll click on this. Okay, let me click on save as. So the request name I'm gonna mention here is, this is part of that. I will the request name would be build building request. That's what, building request example. So which collection? I'll go with the universe earth collection. So that's what we have created. So I'll go with this one, and I will save it into that array collection. So that's it. You see that it's part of universe earth collection and building request X. If you want to change the name, you can change it from here. It's not an issue. Okay, so now once our new tab, once this tab is opened, and we can specify all the details for our request. So we'll begin with, so here we will add the request first, and then we'll add the request details. So the first detail that we are going to add is the request method. So if we have a request that you want to run, we will need to know the URL method and other optional values such as auth and parameters. You see that parameters, authorization headers. So to test sending a request in Postman, we can set the URL. We'll take the same example of URL. That's https forward slash double forward slash, and then postman, then echo.com. Okay, and method get, and then select send. Okay, so body, we got value 1, it's not the data. Okay, so postman STA, okay, we are choosing HTTPS and postman echo.com forward slash get. Okay, so status is 404, it's not found, so we have received that this one is not fetching the data. So that's how it works. Like if uh, if a URL that you have mentioned, the endpoint is not responding, or if we are or the request that you have made is not proper, so the status will be 404. The request resource could not be found but may be available again in the future. So that's how it works. Like this is the demonstration of a request which is not working. Okay, now let's set request URLs first. We will detail the request URLs. This is task and 2.1. So setting request URLs. So each request you send in a Postman requires a URL representing the API endpoint you are working with. So each operation you can perform using an API is typically associated with an endpoint. So each endpoint in an API is available at a particular URL. So this is, so in this what we have entered is also an endpoint with the HTTP object, HTTP method. Okay, so now if we are building an API, the URL will typically be the base location plus path. That's it. So the base location plus path. For example, HTTPS uh, forward slash double forward slash and postman echo hyphen echo.com forward slash get. This is the URL that we have used here. So in this, HTTPS colon double forward slash postman echo.com. Only this part, postman echo.com, is the base URL, and forward slash get is the endpoint path. Okay, and forward slash is the endpoint path. These are like, so normally that's what happens. Okay, another example we will take is for example, we can take one more example. So here I'll create a new one. Okay, for now I'll take this shortcut. So anyway, let me go to the collections. So we are in, yes, we are in universe earth collection. So in this I'll click on this plus symbol. Okay, and the name, I'll save this first. A request name, this is sending request, detailing sending request URLs. That's the name I'm gonna give. Okay, and I'll select okay, API exploring universe. So uh, that's what our workspace. And if I want, I can place it inside that. That's okay. So now let me select save this. Okay, now inside the API exploring universe workspace, inside the universe earth collection, you see this is the sending request URL. So here first I will type base URL, that's HTTPS HTTP, then I colon double forward slash rec res dot in. So that's what the base URL. On top of that, I can add endpoints. So now first I will add my first endpoint is API users. This is our first endpoint. Okay, so now once I click this question mark, I can attach the parameters. So now I will type the parameters. So I'll type parameter is page 2. You see that automatically here, automatically the parameter is typing down. So either I can type directly from here or I can type there, it will be taken. So page equals to 2. So that's it. This is one endpoint. So I'll just rename this URL endpoint 1. Yeah. Then I'll send a request. And you see that we got the details of the page 2. Okay. Similarly, we'll create one more. We'll have a same base, but the endpoint varies. Let me save this first to our collection. So again, sending request URL and endpoint 2. Let me save this. Yeah, save to universe earth collection. Now what I'm gonna do is I'll get into the previous one. I'll just copy this because the base is remained same. So I'll paste it and I'll remove the endpoint. I'll keep the base URL. So on top of the base URL, I'm gonna call another endpoint. So this endpoint is gonna give a complete list of users. Okay. So for that, API and unknown. Okay. When I say API unknown, and I'll call this, and this one is the endpoint. This forward slash, this till this part, it's the base, and this is the endpoint. So now let me send a request. Let me call the request. Now you see that we got the complete information. So we got almost all users, ID1, ID2, ID3, ID4, ID5, all employees records we got. Then we will call a one more endpoint. So this endpoint is gonna fetch only one user, so with an ID 2. Okay. So what I'll do, I'll click on this again and I'll save it. I'll type a name that's sending URL, sending rec URLs and endpoint 3. So let me save this first. Once it's saved, let's copy that base URL from endpoint 2. So I'll paste it here. So now I will attach the endpoint. So endpoint will API unknown. Inside that I'm gonna call just one, that is 2. Okay, this is one endpoint. So where this endpoint will fetch you only employee 2. Let me call this API. Let me call this API endpoint. And you see that this time we got only one employee record, that's ID2 employee record. So uh, that's how the difference between uh, a base URL and then the difference between base URL and endpoint path, we can say endpoint path can be demonstrated. Okay. Now for example, if we are using a third-party API, your API provider will supply the URLs you need. For example, within their developers documentation. So any endpoint, if you see, let me show just for the demonstration. Volvo developer portal. Let me click on developer portal Volvo Trucks. Yep. So you see that here, this is the complete documentation that we have, and you see this is my account settings and sign out, and here are the endpoints, all endpoints we have. So each, this is a catalog. Total we have few products. Okay, out of these products and each product will have endpoints inside. So let me show that API specification, and here again we have few endpoint path. You see that forward slash scores, the base URL, you can see that it's clearly written. Let me show you, explain that. Of course, if you want to access, still you cannot access because this is very, very, very secure uh, a secure API that I've seen in my life. So only I can access. So even for the developers who is working inside the Volvo, for them also it's very difficult. Okay. So I have accessed all those things. So I became expert of API. That's fine. So this is our base URL, and then after this we have our endpoints. So this is our endpoint path. I hope you got it. This is for one, and similarly we can look into the others. So let me scroll, and if I go to this one, and so this is our base URL, api.volvotrucks.com/vehicle. This is our base URL, and on top of that we have /vehicles is our endpoint, /vehicle positions is our endpoint, and /vehicle statuses is our another endpoint path. So when we call that, we'll get the specific data tables which are placed in those endpoints. I hope you got the complete distinction. You should able to make the distinction between endpoint and then base URL, because that's pretty much important to understand what is an endpoint. So when you start typing in the URL input field, Postman will present a drop-down list of previously used locations. So this is what I'm talking. We can use to autocomplete. So Postman will have an auto completion option also that we have selected anyway. So when we just say http colon forward double forward slash to the start of our URL, if you don't okay, and one more thing is without specifying this also we can call it, because by default the postman will take it that http colon forward slash double forward slash, so that it depends upon uh, we if we don't need to specify a protocol specifically. If it is http, or else we can mention, it doesn't make much difference. Postman will automatically add http colon forward slash to the start of our URL if we don't specify a protocol. Okay. So now let's look into the selecting request methods. That's the second exercise here. So task 2.1.1. So this is 1.0. So selecting request methods. So by default, Postman will select the get method for new request. You see that get method for new request. So get methods are typically for retrieving data from an API endpoint. We can use a variety of other methods to send data to our APIs, including let me write those: post, then put, post add a new data, put replace existing data, then we have a patch, update some existing data fields, then we have delete, then we have delete. So delete deletes the existing data. So what will we do? We will, by default we are using get method, and we're gonna use different other methods. Okay, for that let's create a new request. Again click on this plus symbol and click on save, and type selecting select rec methods, and click save and click on save. So for example, if we are working with an API for a to-do list example, to-do list application, one example. So we might use a get method to retrieve the current list of tasks, and then we use a post method to create a new task, and put or patch method to edit an existing task. So basically Postman supports a number of extra request methods by default, and we can use custom methods also. So select the method from this drop down menu. You see that drop down button from when you click on this drop down button, it will populate a list of the methods that we can use, and edit the method name text and save your new method. So we can save our new methods here also. Let me click on post or put patch, delete, copy, head, options, link, unlink, purge, lock, unlock. So we have lot. Let me click on unlink. Yeah. So this is how we can select our methods from here. So if you want to delete any icon, any method from here, you can just click on this delete icon, the bin icon. You click on that bin icon, it will be deleted. So now what will we do is, so if your request doesn't require parameters or authentication, you can select send to fetch a response. Otherwise, specify our parameters here or here, anywhere we can do that, and only body data you need to send to the API for body data is here. And if you don't need to send data with your request, set up any required authentication and headers. So here we will have authentication and then headers here. You see that are headers. So let's look into our next activity, that's task 2.1.2. So sending parameters. So we can send path, query and parameters. We can send path parameters and query parameters with our requests using the URL field and param tabs. Either we can mention here at this part, that's the URL, or we can directly mention in the params tab. Okay, this is params tab and this is the URL. Either way we can do that. Okay, so now how can we do it using first we'll do with the URL method. Okay, so for the URL method, that too will specifically do with the query parameters. So let me write that there are two types. One is query parameters. So this can be done and either using let me type that, either using URL field or params tab. And similarly we have a second one, that's the path parameters. That's path parameters and form a part of the request URL and a reference using the placeholder preceded by colon. So this we can do it using URL field using colon. Okay, so now let's look into that exactly how can we write a query parameters. So for that we'll create a new request. Let me save this and type it as a sending, I'll say query param. Okay, and let me save this. Sending query params, that's what. And the first one is in URL using URL field. So query parameters are appended to the end of the request URL. So let me show that. Let us take one example with the same example we will take. That's the HTTPS postman echo HTTPS www.postmanecho.com. So here we will say we want two parameters, basically two parameters we want from this. So for that, what I'll do is I will directly use URL field to fetch those parameters. So what I'm going to do is we have to mention question mark. So when we say query parameters are appended to the end of the request URL following a question mark. You see that this question mark following a question mark, and after the question mark we have to list in key value pairs which are separated by ampersand using this syntax. Let me write that. So I have attached the for question mark, then I would say key value pair, so id equals to 1, and I want to put one more parameter without any spaces, and so I'll type a new. So these are the two key value pairs, so which is okay, yeah, here I should have a question mark. Let me, yeah, so you see that these are the two value pairs we have, key value pairs we given it1 and type new. So now let's call that. This is one type, this is query parameter using URL field, and it's fetching, it's calling the request, and we got that a complete HTTP page. Okay, so then we'll take one more example for this. So this time we will call a single page using a single parameter. So I'll take HTTP request. This is a base image. HTTP request. So in this base URL, so I'll take this base URL. Okay, HTTP request.in. This is our base URL, and I'll attach an endpoint. Our endpoint is API and its users. Okay, this is our endpoint. Now I want to attach a parameter using URL field. For that, what I'm going to do is I'll say question mark. It's a question mark here. So then automatically my params will be auto populated or auto highlighted with the green with the green mark on it. So now I'm going to attach the parameter. So I'll say page 2. Page equals to 2. That's what I want. So page equals to 2. Let me send this. And this is here. You see that? We got the page 2. Page 2 data. This is a page 2 data. In page 2, we have ID 7, ID 8, ID 9, ID 10, ID 11, ID 12, and many more. So just look into this. So total, how many parameters we have? We have outside the parameters or 4 parameters. So now I'll call for the page 3, and we'll see. Yeah, we got the page 3, and total per page we have 6 pages inside this, and total 12, and total pages. Now let's so total, for total page we have 6 employee records. And let me scroll down. That's it. This doesn't have anything, just okay. So we have only 2 pages. Okay, anyway, but that's how we can query our query parameters using URL method. So then we have a second way of doing the query parameter. To send a query parameter, we can add it directly to the URL or open params, either URL or open params. This time what I'm going to do is I will remove this question mark. So I'll click on this params, and you can see that in query params you can find out this. You read this query params. So I'll attach the parameters from here directly. So what's the parameter we have used before? The same parameter I'll use, page, that's the key value, and then that's the key and value I'm gonna give the second page I want, and I'll click on, you can see that I'll click on send. Okay, and you got that response. And this time I'm gonna, if you want to add a one more, so we can add it, but that's how it works. Yes, you see, we got it, this information exactly. Clear? So that's how a query parameter can be queried, can be sent either using URL field or using params option. Okay, params section in Workbench. And the second type that we have is path parameters. You see that this is the path parameters. So we'll use a URL field. So the path parameters form part of this request URL and are referenced using the placeholders preceded by colon, as in the, else we'll show you that. So let me create a new request. So I'll name it, I'll save it first and I'll name it. This is sending path para. This is sending a path para or parameter. And let me save this. And let's give that. So for this, what we can mention is for the path parameter. So I will use the similar example. So I'll just copy this from here. So this URL, and with the base URL and endpoint I'm gonna take. So I'll keep it here in the path parameter. So I'll paste it here. So rest all I'll remove. I'll keep the URL and then endpoint, base URL and then endpoint. So now path parameters form part of the request URL. So and are referenced using the, and they are referenced using placeholders preceded by colon, and after the colon we have to mention the whatever we want. So here I'll say page, that's it. Okay, and I'll click OK. So now to send a query parameter, so you see that after attaching the colon and then a parameter, so it's been taken into path variables or path parameters. So to send a query parameter, add it directly to the URL or open params, either way we have did it. So and enter the name and value. When you enter the, when you enter your query parameters in either the URL or the params field, these values will update everywhere they are used in Postman, but where here it doesn't happen. So that's the distinction I want you to make. Let me show you that example. So these are query parameters. You see that page from here after the endpoint. This is what then we will attach a question mark, and after that you will mention your variables. Okay, these are the query parameters we have taken. So automatically it was taken into this. Okay, or else if I gave it here as query params using option, still it will be taken, whereas here the value should be the value we have to mention here. So here I have said page, and after that, but before that, one more thing we have to do here. So parameters aren't automatically URL encoded here, so that's very important path. So we have to right click for this one, right click, select the text, and then click on this three dot icon, and you will find encode URL component to manually encode a parameter value. That's it. This is pretty much important. So once you do that, so then what we can do is we can give a value here. So I will say page 1, you bring me the page 1. So rest all remain. So path variable, you bring me the page 1. That's it. You got the page 1. You see that page 1, and all the records, employee records in page 1, we got it. So this time I'll call page 2. So I'll keep the path variable same. I'll call 2. That's call page 2. I have called page 2, and where is that? Then this time what I will do is, in addition to this existing, I will attach one more parameter, path variable or path parameter, that is per page, and I will attach a value to the per page also. So per page value I'll give 1, or I'll give 2, ID 2. I want to get ID 2, and here is that you got only ID 2, nothing else, only ID 2 records. Then this time I will say ID 3. You see that you got the ID 3 record, and this time I'll say ID 4. You'll get only ID 4 records. That's how we use a parameter, path parameter included in our URL. So next thing that we will be looking is the most important one, that is sending. The next one, that's a task 2.1.3, sending body data. This is very important. So in this we'll use either put or post or patch requests. So either of these three requests we'll use, and then we'll do it. So sending body data, what is that? We will need, sometime we will need to send a body data with requests whenever you need to add or update structured data. For example, if you are sending a request to add a new customer to a database, you might include the customer details in JSON. Typically, we will use body data with either put or post and patch requests. Either put, post or patch, either of these three, but we need to attach the data inside the body so that that will be inserted in our database. So the body tab, you can see that the body tab in Workbench below the API call API URL API URL rectangle. Below that you can see that body tab in Postman allows you to specify the data you need to send with a request. So you can send various different types of body data to suit your API. So example, this one, the first one, form data, we can send a form data. You see that here we can directly mention, or XWW form and URL encoded, that's one. The raw or binary or even GraphQL. So here we have to mention the GraphQL. If you post something using the GraphQL, or here we'll see the auto fetch or no schema. That's okay. So form data is fine. Okay, I'll go with the form data is also okay. So now what will we do is, yeah, we got the form. We can choose the data type we need for your request body, either form data or URL encoded. This is URL encoded, raw, binary, and GraphQL. So now first we will look into the form data. What is a form data? Okay, so website forms, basically website forms often send data to APIs using this multi-part forward slash form data. So you can replicate this in Postman using the form data body tab. So form data allows you to send a key value pairs and specify the content type. Okay, so what will we do? We will take a similar example from the same, and then we'll post it one. Okay, we'll post it. So here I'll create a new tab, a new put request. So name I'm gonna give as sending. This one we will say sending. I will put the form data, form. Okay, and then I'll attach to the Universe Earth collection. Let me save this. So let's enter the base URL, and after that we'll give endpoint, and we will also mention the HTTP method. So HTTP postman echo.com. So I'll change it to post, and the method should be chosen to the post. So it's all done. So now we have to get into the body, and inside the body we have to check on to the form data, and inside the form data we have to mention the key value pair that you want to include in the respective API. So first key value I'd say name, and name I'll say Charan, and after that description, that is KP, that's uh, key value pair denotes the key value pair denotes name of the employee, and second one will have a profession. I'll say job, and then job I'll say AI scientist. So this KP denotes the profession of the employee. So that's it. Let's post a request, and we'll see what's gonna happen. And here is that the form has been posted. So name, and if we want to post it again one more time with a few more data, we can do that also. So I'll add one more key this time. So city, okay, sorry, I'll say city, I'll say company Volvo, and this is designates about the company where he works. And let me send this time, and here you see that. Okay, this is called as form data body type. So we can attach files using form data when you repeatedly make API calls that send the same files. So Postman will persist your file paths for later use. This also helps you run collections that contain requests requiring file upload. So uploading multiple files each with their own content type isn't supported, of course. However, we have some kind of persistency which is available in our Postman that we can do. Okay, so let me here. So now this we have the second option, which is URL encoded, and similar to here, URL encoded data uses the same encoding as URL parameters. If your API requires URL encoded data, then we have to select X hyphen www hyphen form URL encoded in the body tab of our request. So after that, we can enter our key value pairs to send with the request, and Postman will encode them before sending and posting it into that. So let's try this also. So let me say name, let me say Mars, and let's keep it same. Yeah, here it is. You got it? Location Mars, but this time the only difference is it got encoded and was sent. You see that in JSON at the one more place you got it. Location Mars. It's okay. Then religion. Yeah, you see that religion AI. It's Python. It's code. You see that here you got the form here, and then the JSON, you got the complete. So this is how we post our data into the API. So this is using URL encoded. This is that format. Let me make it a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So then we have a raw data. We can use raw body data here. Raw body data to send anything you can enter as a text. So use the raw tab and the type drop down list to indicate the format of your data. So here we should see either text, JavaScript, or JSON, or HTML, or XML, whichever you want you can go with. So let me select the JSON and keep it beautified, and Postman will enable syntax highlighting as well as appending the relevant headers to your request. So let's do that. The same one we'll give it here again. Okay, you got the syntax highlighting. You see that 4 dots. Basically this is one indentation with 4 spaces. That's what the setting we have given. So now the first key I'm gonna give is location again, and value with a space. I'll say moon this time. Then another key value pair, loves, and I have to give one more parameter, this one is CV, that's computer vision algorithms. Now let me send, and here it is. So data in a raw format, you see that location moon love CV, the computer vision, and form is empty, and encoded is also empty. You see that JSON is null here, and that's how we can use a raw. So these are basically various ways of posting a data, a form data, URL encoded, raw, and after that what we have is binary. So we can set a content type header manually if we need to, or at the one Postman sends automatically. So we can use variables in our body data, and Postman will populate their current values when sending our request. So here we can click on this beautify to basically beautify our format on the body. So then we have binary data here. Let me click on that. So for the binary data, we can use binary data to send information. We can't enter manually in the Postman editor with your request bodies such as image, audio and video files. So what we can do is we can select the file, and then we have to select it and open it. So it will take it. Okay. That's how a binary file can include it, and you can send a request. And headers. So nothing much has been taken because I have put. Okay, that's how we use a binary file. And similarly, the last one is very important one, the GraphQL. So we can send GraphQL queries with our Postman requests by selecting the GraphQL tab in the request body. So we can enter our code here. So query, and then here the complete querying the query code we have to enter here. So we have to enter our code in the query area, and any variables, if you have any variables in the GraphQL, we have to mention in the GraphQL variables section. So we have two sections of one, first box a query, and second one is GraphQL variables. Here we have to mention the queries, and here we have to mention the GraphQL variables. And we can, so this exercise GraphQL, we are going to specifically working on the GraphQL type of endpoints also. So till now we are not going to do any exercise here. We'll be doing that separately when we handle the GraphQL. Okay. So here we can either out of which or no schema, whatever the section that we want, we can select. So now let's look into authenticating requests. Task 2.1.4, authenticating requests. So let's get into the Postman. Some APIs require auth details you can send in Postman. Authentication involves confirming the identity of the client sending a request, and authorization involves confirming that the client has permission to carry out the endpoint operation. So open the authorization tab. Let's click on this, and we will configure our access details here. We can see there are a lot of authorization methods. One is inherit from parent and no auth, API key, bearer token, basic auth, digest auth, OAuth 1.4, OAuth 2.4, Hawk authentication, AWS signature for Amazon Web Services, and NTLM authentication in Akamai Edge Grid. These authorization methods are request level methods, and similarly we can have authorization methods. Yeah, this authorization is the collection level method. You can see that. Just click on that collection and you will get the authorization, similar authorization methods. we can provide the authorization directly to the collection, and we can run all the requests. We can call all the APIs endpoints inside the collection, or we can individually mention the authorization. So at this moment, it's a public API, so we are not using any authentication. So, but this is where we have to mention the auth. For example, I'll show you one example here. So I'll go to the, yeah, these are my actual, okay. Let me go to the my workspace, and here you should see some examples. Let me scroll this down. Yeah, and here we are using the authentication method. You see that I use a basic auth here, basic auth, and then these are actual secure and very secure endpoint from our Volvo APIs. So here I use the basic auth to fetch the response. Here you should see the response down, okay, and I use the basic auth without this authentication. In addition to this basic auth, I also use inherit auth from parent, that also I use, okay. But just to get the understanding, I'm just showing that how we use it. So when we click on basic auth, it populates this username and password. Here you have to mention your username, and here you have to mention your password, and then you can click on send to send it. Okay, that's how our authentication works. Now let's get back to our workspace, that is API Exploring Universe. So configuring request headers. Now let's look into the configuring request headers. So these are the headers we have here. So some APIs require you to send particular headers along with the requests, typically to provide more metadata about the operation you are performing. You can set these up in the headers tab, and here is that. So enter any key value pairs you need, and Postman will send them along with your request. As you enter text, Postman prompts you with common options you can use to auto complete your setup. So this is the first one is Postman token, but these are auto generated. You see that hide auto generated headers. That's it. Now we can make our the own. So content type, you see that auto completed, that's content type. Let me enter, and I can attach a value here. Content type JSON, application / JSON, or application, so whichever is down. So that's how we can attach our own headers, and we can hide the auto generated headers. And we got this content type application or JSON. So we can save commonly used headers together in a header preset. Here you can click on menus preset, and we can save that. Let me click on this. So now quickly add groups of header key value pairs to the request. Start typing the name of the uh, preset name, and it will show up in the drop down list. So at this moment we do not have much lists. Okay, so once we create our preset list and once we add it, we can, let me click on here. So let me add, so give a preset name. So preset header 1, and then content type. So So value is JSON application / JSON, and I'll click on add, and you got your preset. So now if I want to apply this, just click on update, and that's it. So we can use these presets whenever we want to use these headers. So now we will look into the auto-generated headers. So Postman will automatically add certain headers to your requests based on your request sections and settings. So we can select this hide auto-generated headers to hide these auto-generated headers. Okay, and so here out of 7 we have 6 auto generated headers, and one is the custom made or created by us. So that's what is about headers. So if you need to change a header, you can do so in the relevant part of Postman. For example, we can go to the authorization tab here, and the request body, you see that, sorry, and cookies for the request domain, and the settings in some case directly in the header tab itself also. So those kind of information can also be used in headers. We can attach a cookies, a postman token, or content type. So admin key. So one more thing I'm going to add, so it is admin key, for example, admin key. So I'll give, okay, and similarly I will add a postman token directly. Postman token, and more. This is how we can attach our headers. If you need to go to a different part of the app, Postman will show a link on the right hand side to attach. And here you can see the cookies also. You see cookies, and manage cookies and sync cookies. Okay, then we will look into the using cookies. We can manage cookies for our domains from Postman. For that we have to just select cookies, any one, and add. Once it is sent for domain, I'll select this. Yes, you got it. Then we have to copy this, and then we have to place it in, and then we have to send it. Okay, this cookie. So add domain name, based on the domain name we'll get the cookies. Anything. And you have to just take that cookies, and you see that 0 cookies at this moment. Avalo.com is also 0 cookies. So we can add those cookies here. We can add so cookies here. Okay, and we can use these cookies, and we can sync these cookies. Okay, and let's get back to our slide. And okay, we have seen setting the request URLs, selecting request methods, sending parameters, sending body data, authenticating requests, configuring request headers, auto generated headers using cookies, and choosing custom settings, and troubleshooting our requests.